Hello! In this beginner tutorial, I will show you step by step how to prepare your machine, whether it's a Mac or a Windows, for Python programming. We will be doing this by installing two components on your machine. The first one is the Python distribution, the actual Python programming language, and the second is a source code editor called Visual Studio Code. Now, Python is one of the most popular, if not the most popular, programming language in the world. It is widely used for a variety of domains such as machine learning, artificial intelligence, data science and data visualization, but also web and app development and automation. Now, in order to get the full potential of Python, we also need a source code editor. There are many source code editors out there on the market. Some of you have maybe come across PyCharm, Atom, Sublime Text in other tutorials online. But for this course, we're going to use Visual Studio Code. I chose Visual Studio Code for a few reasons, but the most important reason is that it is a lightweight but still very powerful source code editor. It comes with instant code debugging, an integrated terminal, and many other features. Now, I've divided this video into two chapters. First, a chapter for Mac users and a second chapter for Windows users. The installation is more or less the same, but feel free to jump to the different chapters that are most relevant for you. All the installation links are in the description of this video. So without further ado, let's get started and let's install Python and Visual Studio Code on your machine. Okay, so you are a Mac user. Let's first install Python on your Mac. Now, there's different ways of installing Python, and actually most Macs already come with a pre-installed version of Python. What we are going to do is installing Python with a very popular, if not the most popular distribution to install Python, but also some of the most common and mostly used packages in Python, and this distribution is called Anaconda. In order to install this, please open a web browser and visit the following web page. So you're going to anaconda.com/download. Here you can download the actual distribution that you need for your Mac. In order to understand which version you need to double check which type of chip you have in your Apple. If you don't know, you can easily find out by clicking on the little Apple icon in the left upper corner and click on About This Mac. This will give you another window and it tells you which chip you have. So in my case, I have the Apple M1 chip, but if you're on a little older machine, you will maybe have an Intel-based chip, or if you're on a newer machine, you will have Apple M2. Now, this is important to know because before you can download Anaconda, they will ask you which Anaconda version you need. And so here it is important to identify which chip you have in your machine. In my case, I have the Apple M1, so I will choose the download M1. You can download this in your downloads folder and it tells you thank you. Now, before starting this installation process, I would like to show you a few things. Please go to your terminal app. You can do this by going in the right upper corner. My apologies. You can do this by going to the right upper corner and search for terminal. This will give you the terminal app and it looks something like this. Now, if you notice, this will have your username and the name of your machine. There is nothing in front of this. Also, if you ask terminal to open Python, it tells you Python is not found. On the other hand, if you type Python 3, you'll see that there is a pre-installed version available already on your machine, even before installing Python with Anaconda. Now, this is the factory pre-installed version of Python. You also see it dates back from 2001. Now, the problem is if you want to use this version of Python, you have to install it anyway, and it is also not the most extensive version of it. So in order to get out of Python again, we will type quit and then opening and closing parentheses. So now we're back in the terminal. What I would like you to do now is close the terminal down by completely quitting the terminal application. All right. Now you can go to your downloads folder and you can launch the Anaconda installer. Now your Anaconda installer will guide you step by step through the process of installing Anaconda on your Mac. Please walk through this installer as you would do with any type of software. Read the documentation, read the license and agree with the license, and click on install. Now this process takes a few minutes and I will be back in when it's done. Okay, so Anaconda is now installed on your Mac. Click on continue to finish. Click on close to close the installer. And you can now move the installer to your trash if you want. Now what I would like you to do is to open terminal again. So the terminal application that we just opened as well. What you should see now is that you have again your username at your machine, but you now also have base in front of it. This is an indication that there's now an Anaconda environment installed on your Mac. If you now type Python in your terminal, you also see that it immediately opens Python, in this case Python 3.10.9, which is a much more recent version of Python. So this shows us that the installation of Anaconda was successful. Okay, so let's move to second step right now. And let's install Visual Studio Code, our source code editor. Go to your web browser again and please go to code.visualstudio.com/download. Here you can choose the installer again for your machine. We have just identified that we are on an Apple Silicon, or in your case, maybe you're on Intel chip. Choose the appropriate installer. It will then download for your Mac. And you can click on save. This takes longer than usual on my machine, but this should be in a few seconds normally because it's a pretty small distribution. In the meantime, you can close the terminal window. You don't need that for now. Go to your downloads folder and unpack the zip file that you just downloaded. Now drag this Visual Studio Code.app and drag it to your applications folder. You should now have Visual Studio Code installed. Okay, so now you have Visual Code installed in your applications folder. Go to your applications folder and now open Visual Studio Code for the first time by double-clicking on the editor. I'll make this a bit smaller so that you can see what I'm doing. All right, should look something like this. The first thing that you will want to do is to go to the menu bar at your left-hand side, so this one. Choose the last option in this menu bar, which is called Extensions. If you click on Extensions, a new window pops up with a search bar. In the search bar, search for Python. Normally the first suggestion is the right one, it's Python, and what you want to do is to make sure to install it. This is just the integration of Python and the instant debugging in VSCode. In my case, this is already installed. You want to hit install here. When that's done, we're good to go. So what you can do then is click on the first option in your left-hand menu, and which is the Explorer. And what you want to do here is open a folder. In my case, it doesn't really matter what folder you choose, but in my case, I will just choose the Downloads folder. Click on Open, and your environment will look like this. What you want to do now is click on New File. It asks you what type of file you want to install. Well, because we just installed a Python extension, it also suggests do you maybe want to open a Python file. So you click on Python file. As you will see now, a new window opens. This is your Python script. At the bar, at the base bar in your Visual Studio Code, there's probably here an orange section that says Select Interpreter. In my case, this interpreter was already selected, but you want to click on Select Interpreter. This will show you a drop-down list with the installed versions of Python on your machine. As you will see, this also includes the Python version that comes from the factory installation, and that is the Python 3.0. Now we want to make sure that we're not using this one. We want to make sure that we're using this Python version that we just installed by means of the Anaconda distribution, and that is called Base. So make sure to click on that one and that you have this set up with the base Conda version. Now, in order to test whether this works, we could say print, and in our print statement, we can say hello. So we have print, we have parentheses, within the parentheses, we have quotation marks, and between the quotation marks, we have hello. If you select this line, you click on this little triangle or the run Python file. It asks you whether you want to save the file. So yes, we can say test.py. And you will also see that it runs in your terminal. And that's all. For now, in the next steps, you will see how to learn to code actual scripts in Visual Studio Code. All right, so you are a Windows user. Now we can install Python in very many different ways and distributions. What we're going to use here is the Anaconda distribution. It's one of the most popular ones and the most used ones. And the advantage of using Anaconda is that it doesn't only give us Python, it also comes with a whole set of different packages that we're going to use also in different types of Python programming works, such as data science or artificial intelligence. All right, so in order to do that, I would like to ask you to go to your web browser. In your web browser, go to anaconda.com/download. This will open the following page. Here you have a download button. Click on the download button and make sure that the Anaconda installer is going to be downloaded on your computer. Okay, so once downloaded, you can open the Anaconda installer. You can do that just by clicking in the download bar, or you can go to your downloads folder. Click on Run. And the installer should now start. Here it's just a question of following the steps, but there is one step that is very important. In this case, I am going to click for just me, the location of where we're going to install Anaconda and Python in particular. And then there is another window that asks for advanced installation options. So here, one of the boxes is not ticked. The box that says add Anaconda 3 to my path environment variable. You want to make sure to tick this box. Even though it's not recommended, it is important to have Anaconda and Python installed to the path environment variables of your terminal. So please tick this box and tick also the last box, clear the package cache upon completion. All right, so make sure that you tick the box for add Anaconda 3 to my path environment variables. Okay, once you have that, click on install and the installation process is going to start. Again, this takes a few minutes and have some patience here. All right, so when that's done, after the installation, click next. Okay. We can continue by clicking next and we can click on finish. So now, normally, Anaconda is installed. Next step that we're going to do is downloading Visual Studio Code. So go to another page and it's code.visualstudio.com/download. Once you're here, download the Windows installer. All right. Also, this one is going to take some time, a few minutes, and then we're ready to also start the installer. All right, so when Visual Studio Code has downloaded, open the installer. Make sure again that you run this. Did you accept the terms and services? That you install it. If you like to have a desktop icon, feel free to add it. And tick the other boxes as well. Next, you click on install. And it should be installing. This should go relatively quickly. And as soon as it's installed, we can immediately go into Visual Studio Code. So finish. Okay, now we have Visual Studio Code installed. I would like you to open Visual Studio Code. So we're going to open it and it should look something like this. All right. Now the first thing that you would like to do is installing the Python plugin for Visual Studio Code. You can do this by clicking on the left at the menu in the left hand side and you click on extensions. In extensions, you search for Python. The first suggestion is the Python that you need. So this is the Python interpreter for Visual Studio Code, which then helps you with the instant debugging of your code. Click on install and it's going to install. It's going to take a while, but as soon as this is installed, we can move on. Okay, so now that's installed. So now we're ready to go. So we're good to go. Next step that you want to do is going to the Explorer, again in your left-hand menu bar. Then you will see that the Open Folder button. Click on that and open a random folder on your computer for now, but we can, I would suggest to use the Downloads folder. Select folder. You will now have an environment set up. Make sure that you say that you trust the authors of the folder and you're good to go. Now what you want to do is create a new file. So you click here on New File. We just installed the Python plugin, so VSCode now also suggests you, do you maybe want to start a Python file? Yes, we would like to start a Python file. So this is your Python file. First thing that you want to do is save it. So you can just Control S, and now you can save your file. You can call this test.py. All right. Now, what is important is that you double check here in the base whether Visual Studio Code has detected Anaconda and specifically the Python distribution that came with Anaconda. So if it says somewhere here in the bottom Python and then 3.10 base Conda, then you're fine. My apologies, I now see. So here in the lower right corner here, this is the place where you should be able to select your Python interpreter. If there's here an orange bar, then it means that, that says select interpreter, then you need to select your interpreter. If you then click on this, normally Anaconda should be found, or the base, the Python version should be found here. If this is not the case, click on Enter Path. This path is what should correspond with the location of the Python Anaconda installation on your computer. Once that's set up and you have the correct interpreter selected, we can type here print with 2 parentheses. Within our parentheses, we can type 2 quotation marks. Within our 2 quotation marks, we can type hello. And now we can select this and we can run this. If we run this, it will automatically activate our Conda Python version, and we'll see that our script told our computer to now print out the word hello, and indeed we have in our terminal here hello. So far, how to set up your computer for Python programming. And that's all. You now have Python installed on your machine as well as a source code editor. Your machine is now ready to start programming and to start writing Python scripts for whatever purpose you're going to use it. Thank you very much for watching this video, and happy programming.